here is Mr. Pence. The Vice Chair of the Subcommittee on Middle East and South Asia is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank the Secretary of State for her testimony and her service to the country. It's good to see you back before the committee. I also want to thank you specifically for the efforts by the administration and your offices to further isolate Libya during a time of extraordinary tragedy in the streets, tragedy of which I think we are probably only partially aware. I want to continue to encourage and urge the administration to stand with those that are standing in that now bifurcated country, to use all means at our disposal to provide support, and certainly associate myself with Mr. Royce's comments about isolating radio communications and would express appreciation for your efforts at Geneva and elsewhere to facilitate a coordinated international response, including a no-fly zone. Gaddafi must go, and I'm grateful to hear the Secretary of State and the administration take that position unambiguously. I also want to thank you for mentioning President George W. Bush's PEPFAR initiative in your testimony. We haven't gotten quite as much praise about that in the last couple of years as I think is warranted, and your comments are most welcome. Let me take you back. You in your testimony today, Madam Secretary, on page 5, you make reference to the 16% cut for state and USAID as potentially being, quote, devastating to our national security. And I allow you your opinion on that, of course. Let me say, though, that I'm more associated with your statement on September 10th, 2010, in which you were quoted as saying, our rising debt levels pose a national security threat. It was in remarks that you made to the Council on Foreign Relations. A couple of facts, and then I'd love to get your response to them. There is you use the number 16% cut, and I won't question your staff's arithmetic on that. We had a pretty long debate over the continuing resolution. But as we've broken it down, the projects that were eliminated in the base text, for your information, include $300 million in a contribution to the Clean Technology Fund, $75 million eliminated in the Strategic Climate Fund, $55 million eliminated from the United Nations Population Fund, a fund that has been a source of great controversy, $5.75 million eliminated from cultural preservation. Global Diversity Trust took a $10 million hit. You'll forgive me, Madam Secretary, if I see none of those as devastating to our national security. Also, in terms of the reductions of programs, even after you factor in the programs that were eliminated and those that were reduced, as the Chairman pointed out earlier, there's still a rather significant increase in spending over 2008 levels. And at a time when we are facing a $1.65 trillion deficit, a deficit contributed to by leadership of both political parties, let me stipulate. We're facing a $14 trillion national debt, which could well double over the next 10 years. I find myself more associating with your September comments before the Council on Foreign Relations than with the assertion that a 16% cut in a state and USAID budget that has been greatly expanded in the last 3 years is, in fact, to use your words, devastating to our national security. So I would raise that as by way of asking for your response about where do we cut, where do we begin if we can't do without programs like the Clean Technology Fund, the Strategic Climate Fund, the Fund for Cultural Preservation, if we can't suffer modest reductions that still leave us above the 2008 levels, I'd welcome your response to where we do begin to put our fiscal house in order. Because I was one of the members of this committee that helped to engineer a couple of times the passage of the PEPFAR program. Despite my cheerful conservative record, I believe that the compassion of the American people is expressed in the manner in which we come alongside other nations, particularly those in the two-thirds world, particularly those at the point of the need. But we're in trouble here. This country is going broke, and we have to ask every department of this government, with the exception I would allow of people that are downrange in the field wearing the uniform and our veterans. I think we've got to look at every aspect of the government and say, where can we save? So where is the right place to start in what remains of the time?
Well, Congressman, I really appreciate your thoughtful question, and I recognize the dilemma. I guess my plea would be that we look hard at what we're doing that is part of national security. I would like to see what we're doing in the frontline states, for example, treated in the same way as the military overseas contingency operations are treated. Because what will happen is that the obligations that we face in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, which are really in support of the courage of our military that has sacrificed so much, is either going to save the gains or lose the gains over the next few years. And
thank you, Madam Secretary. I do apologize. My Florida colleague, Mr. Deutsch.
You act